This is a 2023 Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV, a compact SUV that also happens to be Mitsubishi's largest car sold in the United States. Mitsubishi gave the PHEV a thorough redesign for 2023, which improved the looks and added power. There are also quite a few gadgets, which I look forward to showing you. This one in particular is a Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV SEL Premium, painted in white diamond with a black roof, which is a $995 option. Technically speaking, there are three trims of Outlander PHEV, ES, SE, and SEL, making this one the highest, but different packages offered on the SEL level make it more like 6 trims. This is still close to the highest because it's above the ES, SE, SEL, and SEL touring models. The only trim higher than this is the 40th anniversary special edition Outlander PHEV, which celebrates, by the way, Mitsubishi being in the United States for 40 years. I'll go ahead and put what makes the 40th anniversary stand out up on the screen right now. As you can see, it is all styling and visual changes. My name is Robin Warner, by the way, an experienced engineer and magazine editor, and my 40th anniversary has already come and gone. And yes, there are also visual differences. I review all kinds of cars, from a $25,000 Ford Maverick to a $425,000 Rolls-Royce Cullinan. I'll happily jump into Honda Accords, BMW M3s, and Porsche 911 GT3s. And I have fun every time. Please subscribe and join me. The base price for a Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV ES is $41,190. The SEL Premium starts at $49,490, and my test car did have that optional paint and a couple other things and costs $50,880. All right, with that, now's a good time to pull over and show you around and inside this car in a bit more detail. There is quite a lot that is new about the 2023 Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV, not least of which is the styling, of course, but also some other tricks and gadgets inside. Let's take a closer look. There is quite a lot going on with this front end. First of all, very happy to see that Mitsubishi is proud that it is an Outlander. Not only is it big lettering up front, but it is nice and polished as well. Goes well with this not at all subtle Mitsubishi logo. But then we've got this interesting sloped grille pattern right here. This isn't open, this is all closed off plastic, but then we have more polished metal stripes in between that and this interesting patterns in between, and that slopes up into the hood, which continues to slope before it gets to the more horizontal part of it. And then down low we've got this different, more hexagonal pattern down here. Then lower still we go back to body color, then lower still we go to black, and then we go to a more polished metal look even farther down. It is busy. And we haven't even gotten to these massive curved pieces of polished metal right here, this like chrome piece right here, before we get to the headlights. These are like daytime running lights right here. The headlights, 1, 2, 3 layers right here, vertically stacked here. It's not a bad look, but it is a busy, complicated look, and it does take a minute to get used to. All that said, I do think it is an improvement over the outgoing design, and at the very least, definitely catches people's eyes. Looking at the Mitsubishi Outlander in profile, you get more of just layers of different color and shapes and things going on. Although you can fundamentally see it has that traditional 2-box shape. It's also not that big, considering that is a 3-row SUV. I'll go ahead and put the dimensions up on the screen right now so you can see that. But yeah, there's a lot of 2-row SUVs that are longer than this. Now, because this is an SEL Premium, we have this 2-tone color going on. We have the white down low, but then black A-pillar into this black roof right here. And then you've got this polished metal roof rail before you get to more black to go with the panoramic moonroof right there. We also have this chrome treatment on the lower part of the window trim. And then just below that, we have this strong character line that includes the door handles running right here. Mitsubishi is not at all subtle about the fact that it is a plug-in hybrid EV. They want everyone to know that, and they are proud of it, and they have reason to be. Even more contrasts happen with these black wheel wells before we get to the wheels themselves, which themselves are 2-toned, black and polished metal right there. Yeah, there's a lot going on. SE and above trims get 20-inch wheels on the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV, and they are 255 section width tires. Really not bad. ES models do roll on 18-inch wheels, which I don't think would look that bad, if I'm honest. But this is a sharp, interesting looking wheel, especially when it's in motion. It has some cool effects going on with the black and the polished metal. Looking at the Outlander from the back, this is relatively simple compared to the rest of the car, but you do still have that combination of dark black, polished metal, and then the white paint, and then dark down low again. Now, these are not fake tailpipes, although they do kind of trend towards that look just a little bit. Those are just styling elements, and I will absolutely allow it. The real exhaust pipe is down low on the driver's side, underneath, just as it should be. Right here, super all-wheel control is Mitsubishi's nomenclature for all-wheel drive. And then another reminder that this is the PHEV model SEL trim. Overall, I think the styling in the rear actually works the best for me compared to the front or the profile of the car. And this is where you can carry all the stuff. SE and above trims get a power liftgate. And what must be said is a decent amount of cargo space as well. However, keen eyes might notice that there's only 2 rows we're looking at. Yeah, the third row, it's right here. Getting the third row out is a bit of a process. Step 1, step 2, and step 3. Those are your last 2 seats for the third row. And with it up, you can see that we've got quite a bit less cargo room, but it's not that bad. And because the third row is now no longer in the third row, this actually goes a good 6 inches deeper than the loading floor of the Outlander. So you could still fit some luggage back here if you had to carry that many folks. There we go. Back to our nice flat loading floor and a darn decent amount of cargo space. One other nice feature I want to show you. We do have AC power right there, and that is 1,500 watts worth of AC power. A nice tailgating feature perhaps, or camping. But if you don't have that many people to carry and need even more room for stuff, that gets a lot easier. Pull a couple levers and now you have nearly 65 cubic feet of storage and room for yourself and a passenger. And I would say plenty of room for a bicycle as well. Let's find out. Yeah, fits no problem and easy to close the tailgate. All right, I put the third row back up so you could see this. That is how tight the third row is back here. There is your leg room. Here, let me get a light on for you. You see how much leg room you have? Yeah, basically none, right? That is not just tight, that is unacceptable. But hold on, second row seats back up and it is adjustable down here fore and aft. So now you have decent leg room for the third row. Still not great, but decent, right? But nothing for the second row. So if the first row person is of fairly average height, the second row is going to have to move back some. I would say that's minimum. And that, right again, makes it really tight for the third row. So the third row is 100% definitely for kids. And I'll go a step further than that. It is for small children. I think once you get to 8 years old, you're going to start hearing complaints. All that said, you do have a nice little spot to hold the seatbelt in place. You do have what looks a lot like a cup holder if you need it. And, you know, in a pinch, you do have 7 seats if you need it. You can see that we have a lot of adjustments in the second row. First of all, I can adjust the seat back several different places. So the second row can recline a fair amount if it wants to. Also, next to the heated rear seats, you see this red and blue arrow. We actually have 3 zones of climate control back here, so the second row can independently adjust temperature. You also have shades. You also have this nice big panoramic glass that definitely lights up the second row. And more fundamentally, you have pretty high seat bottoms, so decent thigh support. I have a decent amount of knee room as well. And you can see that I do in fact have less than a 90-degree bend in my knees. Now, headroom is a bit tight with the glass. I do have to slouch a little bit to have clearance for my head, but otherwise it's really not bad for me. And I am 5 foot 11 inches or 181 centimeters tall. Also, as long as you don't have 3 people, you can fold this down to get a center armrest and some cup holders. How about that? This being the top trim in the lineup, save for the 40th anniversary, we do have really nice seating material. This is semi-aniline leather on these seats. We also have this nice stitch work right here, which is a nice pattern. This black and orange kind of gives it a Halloween theme. We also have the same stitch work on the door and this nice faux carbon fiber trim to go along with the usual controls right here. You do have 2-position seat memory and lots of controls for the seat down here, including healthy amounts of lumbar, which I really appreciate, and massaging seats. That is also a feature on the SEL Premium. We do have lots of controls to the left of the steering wheel, including an unlock button for the charge port. You do have tilt and telescoping steering. It is adjusted right here. Standard across the board is a fully digital 12.3-inch instrument cluster screen. And on SE and above trims, we have a 9-inch center console touchscreen. On the ES trim, this is an 8-inch screen. However, all trims do get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and at least in this SEL Premium trim, Apple CarPlay is wireless. Push button start right here. On SEL Touring trims and above, you do get a head-up display right there. And here is a look at the instrument cluster and the center console touchscreen lit up. Beneath that, here are the other 2 zones of your 3-zone climate control. And as you can see, we do have heated seats in front as well. Heated seats are available on SE and above trims. However, if you see this, heated steering wheel, that is on SEL Touring and above trims. Beneath that, we do have a wireless smartphone charger that is also SE and above trims. We do have USB Type-C and standard USB ports right there, as well as old school cigarette plug style port right there. Farther down, we have our Prindle right here. You do have both D and B. Put it in B, and that elevates the amount of brake regeneration you get just by lifting off the throttle. However, you have a lot more control than just going D or B with paddle shifters and this button right here. This is your brake innovation button. You turn this on, and that little green brake pedal lights up right there, and that gives you near, not fully, but near single pedal driving. However, the system does back off and you still have to use the manual brake to come to a complete stop. Right next to that is your EV button. Now, there are actually 4 different EV settings. You have normal, EV, and it maximizes the time that you're not using the engine, EV only. And then from that, you have save, which maintains the battery level you have and just uses the internal combustion engine for all the electricity you need to actually move the car around. And finally, you have charge, where you can actually recharge a depleted battery, and you can hear the engine going on as we talk about it. Back to normal is kind of like your normal hybrid settings. Beneath that, we do have an electric parking brake, auto hold, couple of cup holders, and yes, a lower center console as well. Looking up, we do have a place for sunglasses and controls for the pano moonroof. Lovely. Now, the steering wheel itself has quite a few controls on it, as you can see, and it is a nice fat rim that is leather wrapped. But just behind the steering wheel, there are also shift paddles. These shift paddles adjust the amount of motor regen you get just by lifting off the accelerator. You have 6 different levels. B0 is just like coasting, but you can use the negative shift paddle to the left and go to B1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 is the maximum amount of off-accelerator brake deceleration you're going to get, just recharging the motors and all that just by lifting off the accelerator. And if you want to go back to 0, you use the positive shifter to get back. Now, in normal driving mode, when you just put it to D, it defaults to the level 2, B2, which I guess is actually the 3rd level. And if you shift to B by going down again, it increases that to level 3. And we haven't even talked about drive modes yet. You have many drive modes. You have hill descent control, of course, but then all these things right here. Right now we're in the normal driving mode. We can actually shift it to tarmac, gravel, snow, or mud. Or we can go the other way and instead get an eco or a power drive mode. So yeah, there are a lot of adjustments baked into this car, a lot of different ways to customize the driving experience, which I think means it's as good a time as any to get back to the drive. The powertrain in the Outlander PHEV is quite unique and the same across all the trims. It is a 2.4 liter 4-cylinder engine sitting transversely mounted up front with an electric motor up front and a second electric motor mounted on the rear axle. Now, the electric motor does drive the front wheels on occasion, but only at cruising speeds, at higher cruising speeds, in fact. This is a transmission-free setup, so it is a clutch to the driven wheels. Otherwise, it is the front and rear electric motors that do all the work. And of course, because there's an electric motor on each axle, this is indeed all-wheel drive. Up front, that engine makes 131 horsepower and 144 pound-feet of torque. Not very much. However, its main purpose is to just produce electricity and let the electric motors do the work. And the electric motor up front alone has 114 horsepower, which, by the way, is a 34 horsepower increase compared to the last Outlander PHEV, a noticeable jump. And the motor in back has more power as well, 40 more horsepower than the outgoing Outlander PHEV, and now makes 134 horsepower. And because it's the electric motors doing most of the work most of the time, you can just add them up. Yes, we get 248 horsepower in total in the new PHEV, a pretty healthy number, and 332 pound-feet of torque. Another big increase compared to the outgoing PHEV is the battery pack size. It used to be a 13.8 kilowatt hour battery pack. It is now a 20 kilowatt hour battery pack. I have to say, I think it's a clever powertrain. This is very similar to the way Honda hybrids work, where the engine is there, the engine can drive the wheels, but there's no transmission. So it's just a clutch to the engine when it's appropriate or, efficient for the engine to do the work directly, clutch pack to the wheels, job done. Otherwise, the only thing the engine is doing is producing electricity for the electric motors. Now, with all that said, it does take a little bit of getting used to because the engine does at times just kind of pop up and start revving high when it doesn't make sense to. And sometimes when you're really on it, it's quiet. So you've got to mentally detach from what you're hearing versus what you're actually doing in terms of traveling, accelerating, etc. Another thing about this engine, you've got the paddle shifters that I showed you that has 6 different levels of deceleration, motor regeneration, just by lifting off the accelerator. And then on top of that, you have effectively a 7th level because you have this innovation brake button. You can start at B0, which is effectively just coasting. So if you're used to the more traditional experience, you can have that. But I'm going to turn the innovation brake pedal on right now, off the accelerator. Yeah, and I would say that's a solid 0.2 of a G of deceleration right there, which definitely falls into that average driving. You wouldn't do more than 0.2 of a G of decelerating anyway. Now we're down to not much more than idling speed. All that deceleration went away and we're just idling along 6-7 miles an hour. So that's where you would still have to physically touch the brake yourself. It's not a true one pedal driving experience. I would have preferred that, but it's still nice to know that you have this innovation brake pedal, and if you don't want it, you just turn it off, and you can go right back to no deceleration at all, just coast, or any one of 5 different levels on top of that. Generally speaking, I give this powertrain high marks. I think it's flexible, dynamic, and efficient, but the engine itself is a little bit underwhelming. The noises it makes and the behavior it shows and the quality of the sound just isn't quite as good as some of its competition. So that's a small demerit. But I mentioned efficiency. Yes, this thing is quite efficient. if you start with a full battery. You get 64 miles to the gallon equivalent, which is pretty darn good. Now that's combined fuel economy, and even if you run out of battery, you still continue to get a respectable 26 miles to the gallon combined. Now, another thing that's interesting about this system is even though it is a plug-in hybrid, not a true battery electric vehicle, it does run on a 350 volt system, and that does allow fast charging if you want it. So on a regular 240 volt system, 220 to 240 volt system, it takes about 6.5 hours to totally charge this thing up. And if it's just a 110, you're looking at more like 12 to 16 hours. But you can also charge this battery up to 80% capacity in just 38 minutes if you want to. But while all those numbers are important and good to know, none of it is as much fun as accelerating. Of course, I had to test it. Let me show you that right now. All right, everybody, time for an acceleration test. I do have the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV in normal EV mode, but I have it in the tarmac drive mode, and I do have, more than 3/4 of a battery here. So let's see how it goes. All right, pulling into position. Bit of brake torque. All right. Oh, not too bad of a launch. Yeah, and good pull. Good pull. We're getting moving pretty well here. Really? Yeah, that's not bad. Okay. We have a power to weight ratio of not much better than 19 pounds per horsepower. Not a ton here. This thing isn't light with the 20 kilowatt hour battery pack, and power is perfectly adequate, but it's not abundant, right? So considering all that, the electric motor torque, the electric motor response, and the electric horsepower really added up to pretty darn decent. Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised. Yeah, respectable, and definitely better than the last generation Outlander. That one did feel a touch anemic. This one feels solid. What about the rest of the experience? The ride, the comfort, everything else about this car? Well, I think the seats are quite comfortable. I love the fact that I'm getting a massage right now as I'm talking to you. And the ride is reasonable, but it does feel just a little bit less refined. We are floating around just a little bit. I would appreciate just a touch more stiffness and a touch more response in the movements of this car. The flip side of that is it's never harsh or punishing. And that's true on roads like this or on the interstate. I did test it there as well. Let me show you that. All right, everybody, time for a quick stint on the interstate. See how this Mitsubishi Outlander feels, how the ride is, wind noise, and also give a quick test of all these driver assist systems, of which we have plenty. I'll go ahead and put the list on the screen right now for you to check out. And yeah, see how this thing feels. All right, we are up to speed, moving with traffic right around 75 miles an hour. To be fair, right off the bat, I want to say that it is an exceptionally windy day today, but wind noise and road noise is a little bit louder than what I'm used to. You get just a little bit more tire than we do in a lot of modern compact SUVs these days. Wind noise is a little bit elevated, but that might just be the exceptionally windy day that we have today, but it certainly isn't above average. Also, the powertrain largely is quiet, but when the engine does kick on to do some work, which is pretty common on the interstate, it can have moments of loudness. You'll have these moments where it just quickly revs up, and when it does so, it's not terribly quiet. We do, of course, have adaptive cruise control and lane centering and lane following and all that kind of fun stuff. So I will quickly take my hands off the wheel, see how it does. Yeah, and it's doing okay. It's not staying dead center in the lane, but it is following the subtle curve in the interstate we have right now. But it's also pretty quick to warn you that, hey, your hands aren't on the wheel. But it is also quite quick to realize that your hands are back on the wheel. You don't have to wiggle it or anything like that. Considering that we have a nice and big battery pack and that we can do a lot of electric only driving and, a decent sized fuel tank as well, you know, this is a perfectly pleasant highway cruiser, and 26 miles to the gallon when you've depleted the battery is a reasonable number as well. Also, we've got a lot of conveniences in here. The massaging seat, and the seats are generally comfortable. I really appreciate all the lumbar support I get. The switchgear is all easy to reach. My phone's staying charged wirelessly. I'm using Apple CarPlay wirelessly. So yeah, overall, this is a very reasonable highway cruiser. Despite being a compact SUV, despite being a plug-in hybrid, yes, Mitsubishi says you can tow with the Outlander PHEV. Not a lot, 1,500 pounds, but that is a motocross bike or two. That is a jet ski. That is a teeny tiny utility trailer even. It's something is the point, and it's a whole lot better than nothing. So what do we have in this 2023 Mitsubishi PHEV? We've got more power, which is definitely welcome. We've got new styling, which is also welcome. And we've got a really intriguing combination of traits here. Considering the price of this car, it really does offer a lot of comforts and features and gadgets. Ultimately, I wouldn't say that this is a straight up good looking car, but it certainly is uniquely styled, and it does stand out. If you don't want to have a black carry-on bag equivalent of a compact SUV, this might be a good choice. Mitsubishi made some bold choices with the styling. So ultimately, I would say this is a really good choice for someone that is frugally minded, thinks green, and needs a lot of flexibility with their cargo and passenger space. The fact that you can have something this small to carry up to 7 people snugly is a really interesting feature. I'm Robin Warner. Thank you for watching. And if you like this video, I would really appreciate it if you showed me by giving it a thumbs up. Doing so helps me out quite a lot, and I'd appreciate it. Also, if you're interested in something like this, this is actually a good example of what makes it unique. There isn't really a direct comparison in a lot of ways, but depending on what you're more interested in, Toyota has a slightly smaller than this Toyota RAV4 Prime, which is also a plug-in hybrid and actually more efficient than this one. But if you want something that's about this size, there's the Toyota Venza, which isn't a plug-in hybrid, but a standard hybrid. Both of those have their strengths, weaknesses, and their own personal touches. And from there, I've reviewed a whole bunch of other stuff. Something's gonna come up on the screen next to me. Maybe it'll be something you're interested in. I hope it is. And if you watch it, I really do hope you like it. Okay, goodbye for now.